That's what happens when you start trying to cast. You start coughing at yourself, and then everything gets all bad. Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back. My name is Caster Seda, and we're very excited to help practice cast a game today. We'll go ahead and bring this bad boy up on the full screen. Whoop! Let's get all this all nice and set up. This is very exciting. We have SK Gaming versus Copenhagen Wolves, and we will just skip right ahead to the juicy bits. Showing off the teams here. Yes, I believe that is Copenhagen Wolves in the white, SK Gaming in the blue. Now, SK Gaming is a relatively good team. They're very standard. They have a pretty common team composition. I haven't seen anything too fantastical out of them, but the Copenhagen Wolves, though, that's the team that I really want to watch in this particular matchup. I haven't seen a lot of games between the SK Gaming and the Copenhagen Wolves just because how difficult it is for me to end up watching the EU games, and I know that's making an excuse for not watching games, which of course is not something that I want to be telling on stream, but I'm just kind of talking to myself for now. We're already going through a couple of quick bans. So far we see Yasuo and Kale banned out for Cowtard, LeBlanc and Pantheon being banned away from Jacit, Svenskeren, and Candy Panda N-rated. Oh, I know SK Gaming. I've seen them before. Freddy 122. I don't think I've seen Copenhagen Wolves before. It is now SK Gaming's pick, so we'll have to see who they're going to ban out next, and it is going to be Kassadin. They're going for a standard ban in the mid and an Elise ban for Svenskeren from Copenhagen Wolves. That's going to allow Freddy to go for a first pick Annie on N-rated. I have seen N-rated's Annie before. It is very powerful. A lot of AoE's done an amazing insta-locking Lee Sin. That's impressive. Just immediate, no hesitation, not even waiting a second, just immediately insta-locking in Jungle Lee Sin. Now Jungle Lee Sin, very high mobility, also capable of doing a lot of damage, but he does taper off a bit into the late game, and Youngbuck hovering over Karma. I'm curious if he's actually going to be locking in Karma. Yes, it is. That's a bit interesting. Not something you see every day. Karma does scale very well because she does have her mantra at level 1, which means that she can put out a lot of bonus damage very early. But of course, it is a little bit difficult to punish her in lane. She trades very, very well in lane as a support, but can also succeed as a mid laner. And immediately, Svenskeren locking in Wukong. I believe that's going to be a jungle Wukong. And Lulu as well. I believe that was Cowtard on the Lulu. That's going to be a mid Lulu, or excuse me, Jess is on Lulu. Lulu procs very, very well with her auto attacks and scales incredibly well with ability power, especially with the changes in Season 4. Her ability to speed up allies and slow down enemies now also scales off of her ability power, giving her a lot of utility in combination with her absurd amounts of damage. Cowtard going to be locking in Ziggs to try to deal with that Lulu. Lulu, of course, doesn't have a lot of lane clear as it stands with her passive abilities, but Cowtard should be able to help shove the lane and keep Svenskeren focused on mid, which is going to allow Forgiven's Caitlyn, and I believe that's going to be unlimited on Karma to push out in the bottom, or if they decide to go for a 2v1 in the top lane, push out in the top. Now this is going to be the 4.1 patch notes in which the top two turrets, the mid lane and the top lane turrets, no longer receive bonus armor and MR, which means that Riot expects those to be solo laners, but of course as we've seen in the LCS, you can't really expect anything, especially after seeing Rakat play with mid Pantheon and Morgana support. They're a crazy team. But of course, this is Copenhagen Wolves and SK Gaming. Looks like that is the final pickup locked in for SK Gaming. Freddy wants to go with that top lane Renekton, and Copenhagen Wolves looks like they're going to pass on Trundle. Now Trundle, very strong pick right now. I have seen him be terrifically effective, throwing out copious amounts of damage while also retaining a significant amount of utility as well. Trundle effectively counters Renekton's Dominus post 6. Once he throws Subjugate onto Renekton, Renekton has to, well, I guess, if Renekton ultimates first, then Trundle throws down Subjugate and nullifies the bonus armor and MR. If Trundle throws down Subjugate first, then Renekton becomes so squishy that he has to rely on the Dominus to keep himself alive. It's really, all of the cards are in Trundle's favor. And now in the mid lane, it is going to be Lee Sin versus Wukong, jungle. Mid lane is going to be Lulu versus Ziggs. And bot lane Candy Panda locking in Graves. Now, Graves is a bit of a tanky AD carry just because of his passive, but of course, he doesn't really stack up too well against Caitlyn Karma. That's a lot of poke, and I believe the support was Annie, which means that SK Gaming is going to want to try to be aggressive early on. Annie has to rely on her stun AoE in order to really be effective early on, because of course there's no way Annie can keep up with the trade that Karma is going to be throwing out in lane. And now let's go ahead and take a look what you guys think as to who is going to be taking the game. It looks like 60% are in favor of SK, with the other 40% in favor of Copenhagen Wolves. I don't know what other team you would be in favor for, because it is the only two options you can vote for, but SK definitely looking like they're in a stronger spot to take this game. I don't know their stats off the top of my head if they are capable of really catching up with Fnatic and Rockhat, but we'll have to see how they do against the Copenhagen Wolves now. And we are loading into the Rift. We'll take a moment to look at the items. It looks like we're going to have Doran shields on both of the supports. Now, this is a bit interesting because to me it says they expect to auto-attack and trade auto-attacks with the enemy support and AD carry, of course, Forgiven and Candy Panda, starting off with that standard Doran's Blade, Doran's Rings on both of the mid laners, and of course Doran's Shields on both of the top laners. And I believe this is after the Doran Shield nerf, so it is not quite as strong, only providing 5 health per 5 instead of 10 health per 5, which is absolutely enormous. And that's going to mean a lot more recalling in this particular patch. And whoop, Forgiven trading just a bit onto Candy Panda. We can see he's going to back away and just regenerate that right back up. I believe that's called BM if you see your opponent just standing there out of position and then you try to harass them. Doesn't look like we're going to see any sort of offensive plays so far. Whoa, that's a bit interesting. Amazing. Opening up with Sonic Wave Resonating Strike. Now, showing that to Svenskeren means that it could be a very early dive out of Amazing if he wants to go for the level 1 Blue Invade to try to deny Svenskeren. That is something that's possible. You throw the Sonic Wave over the wall, then smite with the vision acquired from that. But of course, that's a very difficult play. Normally you see Dissonance and whoa, Candy Panda gets caught out of position, takes a quick hit. Mantra catches Candy Panda. He's going to get out of the Mantrid Q from Karma and is just going to walk away. And it looks like Amazing actually is just going to be backing off to his own red instead. And N-Rated forced to walk around as well. We can already see Copenhagen Wolves taking a commanding lead in this bot lane as they're forcing Candy Panda and N-Rated back. And already they're very, very low on health, which means that Copenhagen Wolves is going to have an early advantage, at least as far as pushing the lane, and we can see they're doing exactly that. Unlimited, ooh, catching N-Rated once again. N-Rated cannot trade with Unlimited, and Candy Panda is having trouble trading with Caitlyn as well. And man, Unlimited is just throwing out so much poke. He's keeping complete and total control over this bottom bush. That is going to force Svenskeren to gank bot rather quickly. Unlimited finally takes the anti-stun to the face and says, no problem, I've got a health pot, I'll heal through it. You're lower health than I am. Advantage still mine. And it most certainly is, as we can see. Forgiven already getting just a bit ahead in farm as Candy Panda is falling a little bit further behind, 5-3. Level 2 is on its way. Unfortunately, that's the second Piltover Peacemaker to miss. That's a lot of poke missing. Svenskeren now it is red buff. He does have smite available, so he's going to be smiting that and then rushing bot as he did go for the blue wolves and then red jungle path. However, Amazing also smiting his own blue just now, going to be heading bot to possibly counter Svenskeren, but considering how pushed Forgiven and Unlimited are, they're going to have to be careful. And yes, we can see, there goes Svenskeren. No, he's actually going for golems instead before trying to head into the lane. Now that's a bit interesting because that's going to allow Amazing to pick up the white as well. And Amazing actually isn't even going to head to the bot. He doesn't want to try to defend Unlimited or Forgiven. Seeing how far pushed they are, he actually is going to rely on their natural escapes and continue farming around instead. And that's going to put Svenskeren just a little bit ahead as he's now cleared just about all of the jungle camps. He's heading over to the race right now, which puts him just a touch ahead. We can see it's 15-10. Now Lee Sin, very high mobility, but of course his jungle's clear is not terrifically fast. Now Wukong isn't that much better at clearing in the jungle. So we'll have to see how this goes for the laners. Candy Panda, it just cannot trade with Forgiven. That 650 range on Caitlyn is so very powerful. so difficult to trade with, and Wukong looking like he might go for a dive on mid lane. Nope, Kautar just pinging that there is a ward dropped, so he knows that Wukong was in the area. That means that with Wukong in the top half of the jungle, that's going to allow Amazing to possibly try to make a play for the bottom or come around to Jessis from the bot half of the jungle instead. And meanwhile, in the top lane, Youngbuck and Freddy, they're doing pretty well. They're just tank 5ing, doing what tanks do for the top half of the game. 29 farm to 20, already about a 10 farm lead in favor of Freddy. So Freddy going to have to try to snowball that as much as possible, considering how far behind bot and mid are falling. We can see it's about 5 farm in Kautar's favor currently, and oh, he just missed that farm right there. That's a bit unfortunate. But Youngbuck, he's having a bit of trouble trading with Freddy. Of course, once Youngbuck gets level 6 and gets Subjugate, he's going to have a much better time being able to trade. But until then, the lane is going to be strictly in Renekton's favor. As we can see, he's now still a solid 10 farm behind. And Candy Panda actually forced to recall, while Forgiven and Unlimited shoved the turret. Svenskeren is in position to help defend it, but no, he's not going to make it there in time. He's actually going to continue clearing the jungle. It looks like Svenskeren wants to rush level 6 and try to get Cyclone as quickly as possible instead of trying to defend the turret. We can see Forgiven and Unlimited are doing a lot of damage. They've already brought the turret down to half health, and a stun missing for Annie, unfortunately. That means Forgiven is going to be allowed to continue to push this out, and great play out of Forgiven and Unlimited. They're not even going to try to continue attacking the turret. Instead, they're pushing the minion waves to help their own waves push and get further under the turret once again. We can see Candy Panda forced to maximize Buckshot in order to get the wave clear to keep up with the pressure out of Forgiven and Unlimited. He doesn't quite have his Gunslinger just yet, and wow, look at the poke coming out from Unlimited. Those Mantrid Qs are doing enormous amounts of damage. Candy Panda just can't trade. He's falling further and further behind, about 300 gold behind as it stands, whereas in the top lane, Freddy only 200 gold ahead from Youngbuck. So it's really not working out in their favor. Now Youngbuck finally did recall, picked up a Giant's Belt, which is going to allow him to trade a bit more with Renekton, also give him a pretty decent amount of sustain, a larger health pool to deal with. And wow, Forgiven is just doing so well. 54 farm to the 33 of Candy Panda. We can see that Candy Panda is just getting shut down so hard. Svenskeren is on his way to pick up level 6. He's getting very close, but Svenskeren really needs to start focusing on spending time in that bottom lane, as Forgiven and Unlimited are just continuing to push harder and harder, and it's becoming harder and harder for Candy Panda and Rated to trade back with them. And ooh, this is a bit interesting. Jessis, is she going to spot that ward? Yes, she is. Oh, that's such a big investment for Kautar. He's going to be able to throw out a bit of poke and try to force her back, actually throwing out the minefield just to give that zone control. But Svenskeren is in position along with Amazing, but they aren't going to make any plays happen quite yet. Amazing just going to wait over. Nope, he's going over to pick up his own red buff instead. Ooh, Mantrid Q finally missing for Unlimited. A little bit of zone control instead. Candy Panda, though. Ooh, jumping onto Forgiven. He takes a Mantrid shield to the face. Ignite is dropped onto N-Rated, so N-Rated is going to be backing away now. Jesset's in the mid lane, managing to catch up with Kautar. That's 57 farm to 57 farm. We have a Chalice on both of the AP carries, as both of them do have Doran rings as well. And oh, this is such an interesting play. Looks like we have a dive out of Kautar and Amazing. I'm curious if they want to try to go for the red invade. And yes, there's the red buff, but Svenskeren has that on a timer. He's going to see Amazing coming around the side. Is he going to see the auto text? He immediately leaps onto Amazing, throws down the Cyclone onto Amazing as well. Amazing getting the smite. Svenskeren wasn't quite able to get it. He drops a ward over the wall, but a great invade out of Amazing and Kautar, denying that red buff for SK, and now Svenskeren, who is finally level 6, whose sole purpose so far has been to get level 6, use Cyclone, and gank, had to use his Cyclone defensively. Oh, that's got to be so crippling for him right now. We can see it is going to be an AD Wukong out of Svenskeren. That's going to be Spirit of the Lizard Elder as soon as he gets a little bit more gold, possibly a Brutalizer, as Wukong does stack very, very well with armor penetration. I do know that Black Cleaver stacks with Cyclone, so you throw your so what would happen is Wukong jumps on, throws Cyclone, and then immediately goes up to full stacks on Black Cleaver's armor penetration, which just allows Forgiven to really shred through Candy Panda to shred through targets. But of course, the only AD out of SK is Candy Panda's Grave and Svenskeren on Wukong. Freddy normally does a bit of mixed damage. We can see Freddy picking up 2 Doran's Blades to try to force Young Buck back and a Giant's Belt. It's now 77 farm to 59 in the top lane. The lane still is in Freddy's favor. Young Buck is doing a reasonably good job of keeping up and finally catching him now that he's level 7. He does have Subjugate. He can trade better with Freddy, but Freddy with those Dorans is going to do a lot more damage despite the Chain Vest on Young Buck. And Amazing looking like he might want to go for a play in the bottom lane. And the stun, ooh, narrowly misses. We can see the Mantra Tether landing onto N-Rated, who immediately reacts and leaps out of the way. Candy Panda takes the ace in the hole. I don't know if I agree with that at all. Svenskeren waiting over in the wings. It looks like the turret is going to go low. Forgiven wants to try to bring it down. He's poking N-Rated. It doesn't look like it is going to be a dive out of Copenhagen Wolves, despite the aggressive play. That is going to be in SK's favor for the time being, as they are narrowly going to hang on to their turret. But again, here's the next minion wave. Here's Svenskeren coming around from behind. He's going to narrowly miss. The stun actually caught Amazing, but he was already mid-dash, so he completed his dash before going down to the stun. Unlimited is going to pick up the turret. Now let's see if Forgiven can turn this around. Throws out a Piltover Peacemaker on a Panda, but Panda backs away with his life. Terrifically close. And I just realized the synergy between Candy Panda and Annie's Panda skin. I think that was planned from SK Gaming. Secret Riot buff was the plan. Copenhagen Wolves now looking to take Dragon off of that bot turret. And whoa, Forgiven caught out of position, takes a quick stun from N-Rated. Here's Candy Panda throwing down a lot of damage. Ignite goes down, buckshot and collateral damage, trying to burn Forgiven, but he narrowly manages to survive Copenhagen Wolves. Managing to pick up a really big dragon. First Blood finally goes down to Ziggs, who lands a cross-map ultimate with the Mega Inferno Bomb, both catching N-Rated and Candy Panda. Candy Panda falls, and now Amazing picks up the kill on N-Rated. Ooh, this coffee needs to start kicking in faster. Now, the Copenhagen Wolves, they're sitting about 3,000 gold ahead. They've picked up 2 kills onto SK. They've taken a dragon and a turret off of this, and it appears that Coutard, now that he's going to recall, is going to have enough gold for his Athene's Unholy Grail. Yes, he picks that up right away, gets some boots as well for additional mobility. But let's take a minute and talk about the pace of the game so far. Copenhagen Wolves has been setting the pace in all of the lanes and even the jungle, well, except for top lane, as it is Freddy and Young Buck just on their own little tank island. What this has allowed Copenhagen Wolves to do is push the jungle, push all of their lanes very, very hard. As we've seen in the bottom lane, Unlimited and Forgiven were completely unrelenting in their push. And in the mid lane, Coutard shoved as hard as he can, but he didn't really get that far ahead of Jessit's, as Jess is now higher in farm than Coutard. Jessit's doing very well on that mid Lulu. I'm very impressed by that, by the stats so far. But having complete map control for the Copenhagen Wolves has allowed them to take objectives. We already saw them go for a dive at the red buff for Svenskeren and denying him that farm. They noted that he was going for a very fast level 6, going for a very, very quick jungle clear, and they punished him for it. They said, well, let's make sure that you don't actually do anything effective in team fights. In the mid lane, the plays out of Coutard and Amazing have been relatively successful. They did go for the red invade. The rotation to the bottom allowed them to catch a little bit of trading in the top lane. Allowed them to catch N-Rated and Candy Panda. And Amazing, despite unfortunately missing his gank, finally sieged up bot turret with Forgiven and Unlimited and took the turret. What this shows to me so far is that Copenhagen Wolves, they're dictating the pace of the game. They're the ones making plays. And whoa, Young Buck looking like he might catch Jessit's out of position, throws down a huge pillar of frost along with a bit of board control from Coutard, zone control and not board control. And whoa, Svenskeren jumps forward, managing to pick up Unlimited with a quick cyclone. That Spirit of the Lizard Elder doing enormous amounts of AD, burning down the target. Unfortunately, that was unlimited too far forward. Going to be punished for it. Amazing dashes forward. Woof. Narrowly misses his Sonic Strike onto Freddy, who was low and didn't have his Dominus either, so that could have very well been a kill for Amazing. Amazing opening up with the Spirit of the Ancient Golem, so he's not going to do a lot of AD, but that doesn't matter when you're Lee Sin with Moby Boots. He's going to be all over the place shoving turrets, and again we can see Forgiven and Amazing taking a top turret off of their crazy amount of aggression, as they're now about 2,500 gold ahead once again. Young Buck being sent to the bottom to go 1v2 with Candy Panda and N-Rated. He has finished his Sunfire Cape, but the reason that they're sending him bottom is to try to get him to catch up in farm with Freddy. Freddy is at 131, Young Buck at 110 just now, which is going to mean that for the time being, Freddy is just ever so slightly ahead. As we can see, it's 2 Doran's Blades ahead in Freddy's favor, and despite Young Buck's impressive play and the early objectives out of Copenhagen Wolves, the Season 4 changes have really prevented him from exploding too far forward off of global objectives. That early dragon does not give a lot of gold. I believe it was 140. And of course the turrets only give about 100 gold to the entire global team. I think it's 150 to the people who are there. That gold increases as the game goes further on. Freddy finally taking the top turret, but Young Buck with teleport is going to be able to jump into the team fight. Freddy really needs to head down into the mid, as it looks like Copenhagen Wolves want to siege the last tier 1 turret for SK, and if that turret goes down, that's going to be very hard for SK to come back from. That's a lot of map control and a significant amount of board presence, map presence gone for SK. We can see they've had a little bit of difficulty roaming thus far, and they really ought to be trying to spiral their map control further and further. But instead, the Copenhagen Wolves are just taking a commanding advantage. Finally, Forgiven is going to back off, head down to the bottom. He has completed his Bloodthirster, whereas Candy Panda has not completed any main core items, has a Vamp Scepter and a pickaxe along with a BF Sword. So it appears that it's going to be an Infinity Edge first out of Candy Panda, which means he's going to want a team fight. And ooh, Amazing, heading down into the bottom, ward jumping over the wall, but he did unfortunately land right on top of a ward, so he is spotted, and we can already see Copenhagen Wolves grouping up around the Dragon Pit. They want to try to take control over Dragon. Whoa, Svenskeren catches Unlimited, throws down a quick cycle, and N-Rated managing to land a stun onto Unlimited. He goes down, Mega Inferno Bomb catches N-Rated, who just walks away. Now Svenskeren turning onto both Amazing and Cowtard, who are going to take a bit of burn from the Spirit of the Lizard Elder, but not be punished too much for it. Unlimited getting caught, though, is going to mean the Dragon is likely going to go to SK. It is respawning now. Candy Panda actually catching Forgiven out of position, throws down collateral damage, misses oh so very closely, but that is going to mean that with Forgiven backing off and Unlimited dead, it's going to be complete control over the Baron Pit in favor of SK. This is what they need to turn it around. A bouncing bomb getting dangerously close to the Dragon, but Svenskeren picks it up and evens out the Dragons 1 for 1. And now, of course, the later the game goes on, the more gold rewards that Dragon has. So that's going to mean that this Dragon is worth more for SK, especially now that they've decreased the gold gap to only about 1,000 in favor of Copenhagen Wolves. So despite a very early commanding presence out of the Copenhagen Wolves, both Forgiven and Unlimited got caught out in unfavorable trades with SK, which meant that SK could take that Dragon and they could definitely spiral this advantage further and further. Forgiven, he has completed an Avarice Blade. Looks like he is building towards a static Shiv on Caitlyn, along with the Bloodthirster, that's going to allow him to really push turrets and clear minion waves very quickly, and a bit of a pause going on. Let's just skip on forward. Now Bloodthirster and Static Shiv on Caitlyn, that's not something you see every day, but it is definitely a viable build. Of course, 650 range on Caitlyn is certainly not anything to be trifled with, and Static Shiv clears minion waves very, very quickly, while the absurd amount of AD scaling, raw AD on that Bloodthirster is going to allow Caitlyn to shove turrets. And it appears that we have a sort of a turret shoving composition out of Copenhagen Wolves, with Ziggs clearing waves, with Karma throwing down those Mantrid Qs and just shoving them away as quickly as possible. It's a very interesting composition, and so far SK looks like they had a bit of trouble in the early game dealing with it, but now they're finally able to keep up with the trade. We have a Sheen picked up for Jessitz, which means he's going to be going for a Lich Bane as quickly as possible. Lulu does scale very well off of her auto attacks. Forgiven, throwing down the ace in the hole onto N-rated, who's going to be shielded by Jessitz and shield himself. It doesn't take too much damage, but Svenskeren is in position to try to get a save on that. Freddy looks like he's rotating down towards the middle as well. Youngbuck, though, still available with teleport. He's forced to, well, I guess I was going to say he was forced to back towards the mid lane and help out now with no vision on Freddy, but instead he's going for the golems. Whoa, a huge catch on N-rated, catches him out of position. Tether goes down, Mega Inferno Bomb along with Wild Overgrowth, and a huge satchel charge trying to keep him alive. N-rated is shielded, he's very, very low. Bouncing Bomb narrowly misses an auto attack. He doesn't get the kill from Kautar. That was a lot of ultimates to try to bring down N-rated, who narrowly survived. Forgiven doesn't have ace in the hole, unfortunately, for about another 40 or 50 seconds. In the meanwhile, Freddy looks like he is going to give up on pushing in that top wave, head up towards the mid, where it appears that the rest of Copenhagen Wolves are going to be sieging that mid tier 1 turret. Still no static shiv finished for Forgiven quite yet. In the meanwhile, Candy Panda rotating around, trying to split push, force objectives out of Copenhagen Wolves. This is a powerful play, as he does have a pretty big minion wave and his own completed Bloodthirster. But here we finally see the rotation from Copenhagen Wolves. They're going to be forced to respond, and Youngbuck actually teleported into the top lane to deal with that Graves split push threat. And the push from Copenhagen Wolves, despite their impressive power play, is thwarted again by SK. SK is responding so well right now to the plays that Copenhagen Wolves are making. And keeping both Forgiven and Coutard in this mid lane is starting to hurt them. We can see Coutard at 187 farm, completely even with Jessith, and Forgiven at 191, still only 20 farm ahead. Despite his very impressive early game advantage, Forgiven is not snowballing further and further. He's got a little bit of a lead, but he has to increase that lead in order to really make use of that wave, I guess, objective shoving Caitlyn. So far, we've seen SK group up 2 or 3 times in the mid to try to take that turret, and every time they've been unsuccessful. And every time that happens, that's going to allow Jessitz and Candy Panda to catch up just a little bit in farm, as it's Jessitz clearing minions very, very quickly, and Candy Panda going for split push. First, he took that bottom tier 1 turret, and now is only about 25 farm behind Forgiven. He has finished his Bloodthirster and Berserker Greaves as well, but finally the Static Shiv is finished on Forgiven, so Forgiven is not going to have that much trouble clearing minion waves, going to be doing everything possible to increase his lead over Candy Panda. Candy Panda with a pickaxe, possibly going for, I believe it was Legolas, the Legolas build, Bloodthirster Last Whisper, to try to shove down turrets very, very quickly. But of course, we won't know it until we see it. Meanwhile, Unlimited going to support Youngbuck in the top lane. Now, this is a bit of an interesting rotation out of Unlimited. I'd much rather see Unlimited becoming friends with Forgiven and just tailing him around, just because Forgiven is so much more vulnerable than Youngbuck. Youngbuck can just teleport away, actually jumping onto Candy Panda, throwing down a lot of damage, throws down the Pillar of Frost, catches Candy Panda, who just dashes away, narrowly escapes out of that one. But Dragon is about to spawn in 50 seconds. Copenhagen Wolves, they want to try to take this. If SK gets this, they are going to close the gold gap. Actually, SK is now in the lead in gold, 33.2 to 33.2. It's about to become 33.3. As the two teams are neck and neck right now. They're even in turrets, they're even in kills, they're even in gold. Youngbuck and Freddy are about even in items as well, but this is a bit interesting. Out of Freddy, going for the Sunfire Cape and immediately picking up a Last Whisper and Negatron Cloak to deal with Youngbuck's Trundle. Now the Bilgewater Cutlass is completed for Youngbuck, which means he is going for Blade of the Ruined King, but until that is completed, he's not going to be able to trade as successfully. Freddy rotating down in towards the mid. Copenhagen Wolves are caught on top of a ward right now. They could be punished for this as Jessitz goes forward. Coutard now caught forward. Gets shielded by Amazing. Here we finally have Youngbuck on his way as SK makes a beeline for the Dragon Pit. They're going to try to rush it down. Cyclone is available on Svenskeren, so he should be able to land a good Cyclone. Mega Inferno Bomb catching Candy Panda. He does dash forward. Cyclone goes down. It misses Svenskeren. Svenskeren doing a lot out. He narrowly flashes to dodge the Piltover. Peacemaker, the tether, catches and rated. Is not going to be able to make anything happen. Coutard forced to back away, but with Svenskeren so very, very low, and Copenhagen Wolves in the lane position. They're going to make a beeline for the turret, try to bring it down. They are going to be entirely successful, possibly going to go for the second turret as well, while the rest of SK is going to go for the dragon instead. And yes, it looks like Copenhagen Wolves want to take 2 turrets off of this. They did lose the dragon, but great play out of Youngbuck, throwing down the Pillar of Frost into that tiny little choke. Candy Panda dashes forward, doesn't have enough mana for collateral damage. It was actually used, and Copenhagen Wolves is going to back away. Now, that was a very, very tactical play out of Copenhagen Wolves. It was about a dead even engage. A lot of abilities were used out of both Copenhagen and SK, but with both of the teams neck and neck, Copenhagen Wolves just did not get the positioning onto SK. I believe that was Youngbuck ended up getting low too quickly and wasn't able to tank quite as much damage as he really needed to, which allowed SK to camp themselves in the Baron pit. And despite a huge attempt from Copenhagen, they decided, we engaged. We weren't able to get the engage we wanted, especially with Svenskar and Wukong in the front. The fact that he survived and Freddy survived with Dominus, we finally decided instead to go for the mid, and they were able to take 2 turrets off of that. They even were able to defend their own mid tier 1 turret. It is very, very low on health, so it is going to fall rather quickly whenever SK does decide to push up. But SK, they're not making aggressive plays. It seems as though it's Copenhagen making consistent aggressive plays and SK responding. So far, SK has been responding rather well, but I can't help but wait for SK to take the aggressive lead. Coutard going to be taking blue now. Coutard has finished his Rabadon's Death Cap, and with that blue buff and Athene's Unholy Grail, that's going to be an unlimited amount of bouncing bombs, minefields, and Zattel charges throwing out towards Jessitz. But Jessitz is doing so phenomenally on Lulu. He's at 213, now 14 farm, to the 232 out of Coutard. His Lich Bane is completed as well, so he's going to be able to trade reasonably well. And this is such an incredibly powerful play out of SK. They're now finally starting to group up around the Baron pit. They know Copenhagen Wolves don't have a lot of vision. We can see Unlimited beelining towards it, immediately throwing down a ward. It's going to be cleared out by N-Rated, but Amazing will have none of that as he throws Sonic Wave onto the Baron itself to get it to attack N-Rated. Ooh, actually managing to get a catch onto N-Rated there as more and more wards are going into the Baron pit. With SK forcing themselves into the Baron pit, Jessitz and N-Rated are able to keep Copenhagen Wolves distracted. As long as Copenhagen Wolves are distracted, that's going to be Forgiven, unable to really farm or trade with Candy Panda. Wow, that's an enormous amount of damage. And yes, it is a Legolas build out of Candy Panda's Graves, which is going to be Bloodthirster, Last Whisper, and now finally a Zeal in order to trade with the Bloodthirster Static Shiv. And there is no Last Whisper completed for Forgiven. So despite being up in objectives, at least for the time being, Copenhagen Wolves is even in gold, which means that somehow SK has been able to decrease the gold gap an enormous amount. Youngbuck is just going to try to trade a bit with Candy Panda. And wow, that's an enormous amount of damage. Blade of the Ruined King is finally finished. Svenskar looking like he might want to make a play towards the bottom, but Amazing was in position to try to deny that. I guess to deny that, not try to deny that. And yeah, it looks like it's a relatively slow-paced game. Despite the objectives being securely in Copenhagen Wolves' favor, I believe it's 2 dragons in favor of SK, 1 in favor of Copenhagen Wolves, 4 turrets to 2 in favor of Copenhagen Wolves. SK has the gold lead, very, very narrowly, but they are increasing that lead more and more. And as the game length drags on, I do believe that SK is going to come out with a bit of a more advantageous team. Jessitz doesn't scale quite as well as Coutard on Ziggs. Lulu doesn't have those absurd ability ratios. Yes, she's capable of doing enormous amounts of damage, especially to the very squishy Unlimited, Coutard, and Forgiven. But Amazing really sort of Lee Sin tapers off as the game goes on. We can see he's already rushing towards pure defensive stats, picking up a Locket of the Iron Solari, along with the Spirit of the Ancient Golem, Boots of Mobility, and a Sight Stone. So it is going to be simply a Meat Shield Lee Sin, which can work out in Copenhagen Wolves' favor if he can manage to catch Jessitz. But the CC crowd control out of SK is enormous. You've got Svenskaren, who could throw out Cyclone and do an enormous amount of damage. with his, wow, now completed Black Cleaver and Spirit of the Lizard Elder. So he's not only going to shred through his target's armor, but also do copious amounts of burn from the Lizard Elder. You've got Freddy, who can throw down Dominus, and Cull of the Meek to really catch someone. And wow, look at Jessit's just punishing Forgiven for taking the shortcut around into the turret. That is going to be a little bit of trouble for Forgiven if he wants to trade. And man, look at the action. It's nonstop. We're finally starting to see SK put the pressure onto Copenhagen Wolves. Copenhagen Wolves is not going to be able to really deal with this. As we've seen, they're going for more of an objective-based team composition. And it's not working out in their favor when SK is starting to turn up the aggression. But as I was saying, as the game goes on and on, we're already starting to see Jessit is starting to scale exceptionally well. Coutard cannot really punish N-rated. Look at that. A bouncing bomb catches N-rated. Mega Inferno Bomb even landing on him as well. And he only loses about half of his health. By this point, Ziggs really needs to be doing more damage, especially to the enemy support. And whoa, N-rated gets caught, gets shielded as well. Bouncing Bomb narrowly gets shielded out of Jessit's. N-rated has to walk around a trap very carefully there. But with N-rated low, that means he's not going to be able to flash Tibbers. And if he does flash Tibbers, that will almost certainly be his death, which means that SK is going to have to be aggressive out of this. And oh man, Young Buck is in the top lane. This is a huge opportunity for Copenhagen Wolves with the dragon alive. They can't catch up, and amazing catches N-rated. Oh, a huge wild overgrowth keeps N-rated alive. Amazing backs right out immediately. Now that that ultimate is finally burned, this is a big window for Copenhagen Wolves. They don't have to worry about trying to keep anyone alive, as Copenhagen Wolves is going to take the dragon. Great play out of Amazing there, catching N-rated over the wall and turning onto the enemy team before immediately backing away. He didn't get greedy. He didn't get aggressive. He said, well, let's see what I can do to force SK back. There's their very squishy support. I managed to catch him, and yes, I know I'm not building damage, but I can scare them away and allow myself to catch them. And ooh, this is a very dangerous position for Young Buck. Mega Inferno Bomb actually catches Freddy as well. Dominus not even going to be used. Freddy just immediately concedes his death. A great catch out of Young Buck, who's finally building absurdly tanky. And with Freddy gone, it looks like Copenhagen Wolves wants to go for the Baron. They're clearing wards around the Baron pit, and they're finally engaging it. In the meanwhile, Forgiven split pushing in the bottom lane. This is Jessit's forced to deal with it, and Copenhagen Wolves, they engage the Baron. They clear the wards, and looks like they want to try to catch Svensker in. Ooh, he does manage to throw down a good Mimic, gets a good Cyclone, but goes down to Amazing with a Dragon Rage. In the meanwhile, Forgiven picks up not one turret, but it looks like he's moving on to the second. Young Buck engaging on a Candy Panda, who's almost certainly going to dash over the wall any second now, and ooh, flashes over Young Buck with the chase, and it appears that he might go down, throws down barrier, collateral damage, not able to pick up any kills. Amazing getting a killing spree. Forgiven trading very well with Jessit's. No ace in the hole. Yes, there is ace in the hole, so Forgiven could punish Jessit's. He throws wild overgrowth and narrowly survives, but here's N-rated flashing over the wall from behind. Forgiven dangerously low, ignited, forced a barrier to keep alive, trying to heal through it with the Blood Thresher, but Ignite is denying the heal. Forgiven backing out further and further. Excellent kiting out of Forgiven. He's taking a lot of damage and finally backs away. Forgiven 1v2 while the rest of Copenhagen Wolves move into the Baron pit. With Svensker and dead, they have nothing to worry about. No smite steals or engages from behind. Copenhagen Wolves securely in the lead as the game drags on. Man, I really need to get a co-caster because this is an awesome game and it's really starting to be very cool. And I need someone to bounce off of with a little bit more energy. And wow, what a play out of Copenhagen Wolves. They just played that so very, very well. Immediately, after turning onto the Baron pit, immediately just backing off, waiting a little bit, catching Svensker out of position and punishing him for trying to engage 1v4. They forced not only the Cyclone, but his death as well, which then allowed them to chase up onto Candy Panda. And amazing play out of Forgiven as well in the bottom lane, taking one turret, forcing Jessit's to use Wild Overgrowth to survive, and even almost bringing down N-rated despite Ignite and going in 1v2. That's really, really phenomenal play out of Forgiven, and he does have copious amounts of damage now with his completed Last Whisper, Bloodthirster, Static Shiv, and looks like an Infinity Edge as well. Instead of going defensive, it appears that Forgiven finally wants to start going for that sort of team fight build. Ace in the hole goes down. Freddy just laughs and tanks it to the face. He's got no problem taking that sort of damage so far, as Freddy is very, very tanky with his Sunfire Cape, and appears to be a Spirit Visage as well. They did just drop the items. Young Buck, in the meanwhile, split pushing once again. Now that Copenhagen Wolves has the Baron buff, they can afford to split push like this and get that team fight composition that they oh so desperately wanted in the early game, or I guess objective push composition that they oh so desperately wanted in the early game. And ooh, this could be very scary. Now Copenhagen Wolves rotating up towards the top lane while Youngbuck sieges towards the bottom. This is finally where teleport comes in hand, I suppose. Whoa, Mega Inferno Bomb goes down. Copenhagen Wolves dropping just about everything to try to bring down this turret. They get it down to half health. 2 Talisman of Ascensions being used out of both SK and Copenhagen Wolves. One from SK to try to force Copenhagen Wolves back, and one from Copenhagen Wolves as a response. Great play, not overcommitting. Again, Youngbuck continuing to split push, actually engaging onto Freddy, who burns the Dominus. Subjugate is still available for Youngbuck, but he doesn't even care with that Warden's Mail, Sunfire Cape, and Spectre's Cowl. He regenerates enormous amounts of health, especially with the Baron buff. He's got nothing to worry about. Ooh, Svenskeren gets very far forward along with N-rated. There's a lot of very scary engage potential out of SK, but it hasn't been happening quite yet. They really need to group up, and finally we see Freddy coming around, and N-rated. Is he going to go for the Flash Tibbers? He does not have Flash available, does not even have Distortion Boots, which means he's going to have to be able to land a standard Flash. Youngbuck regenerating with that Blade of the Ruin King, trying to bring down the inhibitor. It's getting pretty low on health, and unless SK makes a play right now, they're going to be punished for this continual siege out of... Whoa, Mega Inferno Bomb catches Svenskeren. Here's now Youngbuck after taking the inhibitor, coming around from behind, forces N-rated back, and woo, a huge knock-up, managing to keep Youngbuck back. N-rated is dangerously low. Youngbuck forced to back away, Subjugate being blown. Finally, Svenskeren gets a good Cyclone and gets immediately knocked away from Copenhagen Wolves. Amazing. A huge Dragon Rage on the disengage. What an amazing reaction out of Amazing's Lee Sin. He says, oh, this could be bad, and immediately punishes Svenskeren for engaging onto Youngbuck instead of the very scary Cowtard and Forgiven, who then immediately back away. And now that's both 2 inhibitor turrets and 2 inhibitors themselves gone for SK Gaming, which means that Copenhagen Wolves is in a fantastic spot right now. Candy Panda trying to clear out his jungle while he can. He knows that he's going to have to be forced to back away and defend from those super minions. But Copenhagen Wolves are now unrelenting. We finally see a lot of completed items. And this is a bit interesting. Amazing is currently 0, 0, and 0 right now. The only deaths for Copenhagen Wolves are unlimited, so that means that just about everyone else does have a perfect KDA, I suppose. But Copenhagen Wolves immediately dashing forward to try to bring down the last inhibitor turret. They're going to be able to siege that rather effectively. There are big minion waves out of SK, but super minions are just so hard to trade with. Unlimited, ooh, looks like he might catch Svenskeren, who's waiting around behind. There's no ward in that bush as Svenskeren can manage to get a good Cyclone onto Cowtard, and whoa, Amazing with a huge catch onto Candy Panda, flashes over the wall, but Cyclone follow-up out of Svenskeren, forces Unlimited away. Youngbuck throws down the Subjugate, jumps onto Jessit. He's now tanking the turret, doesn't have Baron buff anymore, so he has to be careful. Cowtard actually picked up the kill onto Freddy. Unlimited got the tether onto Svenskeren, who managed to mimic, I believe, clone himself away. Youngbuck throws down a quick Locket of the Iron Solari to dash forward. Cowtard trying to keep zone control to force SK back, but now that the minions are finally here, that's going to mean Forgiven can shove the turret. We can see they're trying to do a lot, and ooh, a good pick out of Jessits to shut down Cowtard along with a stun onto Forgiven. Forgiven is ignited, so he's not able to lifesteal as much as he should be, and ooh, Jessits now gets forward and a double kill now onto Jessits, who flashed forward. That Lichbane proc allowed him to pick up the kill. Amazing doesn't have enough energy, throws out the Sonic Strike and misses, which means Jessits could turn this around, but Amazing has to back away. Youngbuck trying to bring in the turret. He's currently 1v3 right now, soon to be 1v4 as Jessits is coming around from the side. Youngbuck is almost certainly going to be punished for this. Amazing dashes forward, picks up a huge kill with his Thornmail, and shuts down Jessits. Now this is Amazing, the only survivor for Copenhagen Wolves. Bit of a greedy play for them, but oh, the super minions are pushing onto the Nexus turrets. This could be a big window of opportunity for Amazing if he wants to try to make something happen, but no, he's just going to back away and clear objectives away from SK, force them to rely solely on super minions. And yes, the super minions did do a bit of damage to the Nexus turrets, but that they didn't bring down the Nexus turret or the Nexus itself is a bit of a bummer, because those turrets do regenerate health. And now Amazing clearing out Dragon. Of course, Baron is about to spawn in 40 seconds, and with those inhibitors down, that does mean that SK is going to have to be careful if they want to make a play I can almost certainly foresee Copenhagen Wolves grouping up around the Baron and just stalling, waiting as much as possible to force SK out of their base and let the super minions push. I believe there is still a couple of minutes on those super minions, as the siege was rather slow out of Copenhagen Wolves. I believe it was 2 minutes into the Baron buff, which means maybe another 2 minutes of the inhibitors being down, which is 4 minion waves, which could definitely work out in Copenhagen Wolves' favor, as SK, they have that Baron on timer. They're starting to slowly surge forward. We can see they're all grouped up in the mid, pushing out as much as possible. Candy Panda finally regrouping with the rest of SK, but Copenhagen Wolves looks like they may try to make a beeline for the Baron pit, and Rated with his Boots of Mobility sees amazing. Dash forward, throw down a ward. Svenskeren is in position, who can almost certainly go for a steal, but no, Copenhagen Wolves looks like they want to go for a fight instead. Youngbuck throws down a quick Pillar of Frost. Doesn't catch anyone, and oh no, that's so unfortunate. The inhibitors just respawned for Copenhagen Wolves. This means that the super minions that are currently on the field are the last remaining super minions for Copenhagen Wolves. Ooh, Svenskeren forces amazing back just a little bit. Youngbuck has got to be careful splitting up as SK groups forward. Looks like they may want to try to take this mid tier 1 turret. This could be a very powerful play, knowing that their inhibitors are back up. Copenhagen Wolves has to get this, has to win this fight if they want to win the game, as of course it is 40 minutes into the game. That's going to be 50 or 60 second death timers. Mega Inferno Bomb catching only Jessit, who immediately heals it back up. That's an enormous amount of damage gone for Copenhagen Wolves. I believe that was actually for the wave clear, which shows that Copenhagen Wolves doesn't want to team fight right now. And that's very dangerous for them. They had an early advantage. They took the inhibitors, but of course, now that they're not able to finish off the inhibitors, that means that SK has a huge window to turn the game around. Candy Panda dashing forward, has a static shiv of his own for lane clear. Coutard split pushing in the bottom lane to try to clear a few minion waves. That could mean that SK could go for a dive engage onto Copenhagen Wolves. Oh, Forgiven really has to be careful. He is an enormous amount of damage, especially with Coutard out of position. Mega Inferno Bomb, only about 20 seconds before it goes off of cooldown again. That's a Lich Bane also now on Coutard, so his auto attacks can do copious amounts of damage, but Ziggs very squishy as it stands, which means that he is going to have to rely on zone control in order to land those auto attacks with the Lich Bane and his enormous amount of poke. Svenskeren going forward, looking like he might try to catch someone, but immediately Copenhagen Wolves responds and back away, and oh, this could be very scary as it's now Youngbuck dashing forward. Mega Inferno Bomb catches and Rated. Svenskeren's clone just gonna tickle Copenhagen Wolves a little bit. And immediately, Copenhagen Wolves makes a beeline for the Baron. They're walking on top of ward after ward. Pillar of Frost denies the chase from SK. Let's see if Copenhagen Wolves is going to go for any sort of catch onto SK. But SK doesn't even care that the enemy team made a beeline for the Baron, as they instead dash forward to try to take that mid tier 1 turret. What amazing positioning battle out of these two teams. Oh, they know whoever manages to get the successful engage onto the enemy team. Jessit catches Amazing out of position. Will Amazing try to land Sonic Strike? He doesn't follow up with a Resonating Strike quite yet. And now CW once again sieging up in this mid lane. And finally, this is such an incredible game so far. This is not the longest game of EU and NA quite yet. Copenhagen Wolves once again grouping around the Baron. They are clearing wards. They might try to make the Baron. Yes, they're going to rush it down while the rest of SK sieges up in the mid. SK will almost certainly be able to take at least 1 turret, if not 2, off of this. Jessit's going forward looking like he wants another, but Copenhagen Wolves have taken the Baron buff, so they could collapse on him, and immediately the rest of SK backs away. Looks like they might want to try to make a play for the bottom tier 2 turret. Copenhagen Wolves will be forced to respond to this, but no, they're waiting in the bush. Youngbuck throws down a Pillar of Frost. Excellent map sense right there out of Youngbuck, recognizing that SK could have been going for a dive, seeing that they were all in that jungle, didn't know quite where, but then immediately turning to catch them. And wow, amazing sense out of Youngbuck, not getting caught there, especially leading the charge. That's something that you normally see players make a mistake on. The later the game goes, they make simple mistakes such as not checking bushes. And whoa, Flash Stun catches Coutard out of position. He cleanses himself to keep alive. That was actually Mikhail's Crucible from Unlimited to keep him up. But now that Flash and Tibbers are gone, that could definitely mean that Copenhagen Wolves wants to try to go for an engage. Coutard doesn't have any sort of regeneration outside of Baron buff. But unless they do manage to get a successful engage onto SK, Svenskeren does still have Cyclone available as well. So Copenhagen Wolves has to be careful. Smite from Amazing to bring down Tibbers. Young Buck with the split push. His teleport is off of cooldown. He does have Baron buff available. Ooh, Svenskeren is just playing so well with that Wukong decoy, soaking up at least 1 or 2 ace in the holes, and now that Sonic Strike as well. He's playing very, very strong on Wukong, but Young Buck sieging up in the bottom lane. Ace in the hole, catches Jessits, he heals it right back up. Finally, Copenhagen Wolves looking like they might want to try to take objectives off of this Svenskeren, waiting in his favorite push once again. But Copenhagen Wolves, Young Buck, pushing onto the inhibitor in the bottom, forces a reaction out of Candy Panda, and ooh, Svenskeren does get noticed by Coutard. That could have been very scary. Pillar of Frost coming around as well from Young Buck. He just wants vision for now. And this is so defensive out of Copenhagen Wolves. They realize that if they make a single mistake, SK can turn the game around. They have waited a bit too long with their team fighting composition. Actually, that's not entirely true. They've been making plays all game, but SK has been responding so very well. Every time Copenhagen Wolves makes an aggressive play, the response from SK is just phenomenal and almost certainly instantaneous. As we've seen in the last few team fights, SK, they really only start to fall behind whenever they get caught out of position. And Copenhagen Wolves, they're not managing to do that now, and Mega Inferno Bomb just catching the blue respawn. Not going to be able to pick up any sort of kill there. And again, Young Buck with the split push. Finally, Copenhagen Wolves making a power play, trying to see if they can make anything happen, but SK, they'll have none of it. They say, you guys have Baron buff, you're split pushing, we'll group all 5 mid and force you to respond. If you guys group all 5 mid and try to split push once again with Young Buck, well, we'll just sit back and defend because we know that you can't engage 4v5, especially when we have N-rated on Annie and Svenskeren on Wukong. Wow, this is just such a phenomenal game right now. I'm so enthralled with how these two teams are playing. In the meanwhile, I'm drinking water, which feels very good for my now well-worn voice. And ooh, Candy Panda dashes forward. Coutard gets caught in Cyclone. He goes down, but Forgiven is still alive, able to throw out copious amounts of damage. Now Young Buck dashes forward, throws Subjugate down. He's soaking quite a bit, but what a great pick out of SK, shutting down Coutard, finally bringing him to his knees. But this could very well mean that Copenhagen Wolves could siege this turret off of this. The minions are so very slow, though. SK finally, Freddy and N-rated back off with Home Guard, and they are able to regenerate and deal with that. What an amazing pick with Svenskeren dashing forward and picking up the kill with Cyclone. They are finally getting tanky enough to trade with Copenhagen Wolves, and now the Baron buff has fallen off. SK is looking like they're getting in a more and more commanding position, and then look at the crit from Candy Panda. Static Shiv, Last Whisper, Bloodthirster, Infinity Edge crit onto Forgiven, forces an enormous amount of damage, and wow, this is a very interesting pickup out of Forgiven. Looks like Forgiven wants to be going for the Mercurial Scimitar. With his already completed Infinity Edge and Bloodthirster, not going to go for a Guardian's Angel. He recognizes that if he gets caught, he loses. Even if the Guardian Angel proc comes back up, Freddy is going to be so tanky. Svenskeren going to be waiting on his grave, and ooh, amazing catches Freddy. Isn't able to quite punish him for it. Finally, Candy Panda is alive once again. A huge Pillar of Frost catches Freddy. He's taking a lot of damage now, but Locket of the Iron Solari soaks quite a bit. Mega Inferno Bomb goes down. Freddy forced to flash forward. Here's now Amazing again with the Mimic clone. Dodging that Sonic Strike now. Amazing catches Svenskeren. He dashes forward, throws down Cyclone, but Forgiven shuts him down. That's actually Coutard picking up the kill, and now it looks like CW finally are going to be taking the engage that they need, and that's a triple kill, or was that a quadra kill now in favor of Coutard. The only surviving member is Candy Panda, and the rest of Copenhagen Wolves are sieging up the mid. There's about a minute window for Copenhagen Wolves to end the game. I don't think they're even going to try to clean up the other inhibitors. They're just going to go straight for the Nexus, and oh boy, Candy Panda knows it. He knows he can't make it back in time, just goes to clear the dragon just for funsies instead, and Copenhagen Wolves look like they're in a commanding position to take the game, and yes, the Nexus is going down. Copenhagen Wolves beats SK Gaming. What an amazing, amazing game. Holy cow. What play between these two teams. That was a stressful game. Did they just howl? I think I just saw them howl. That was interesting. Okay. Cool. Alrighty, well, I think that's about it for me. That was a sufficient warm-up and casting practice. Wow, that was just a really awesome game. I'm really glad that I spectated that. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you like it, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If not, then don't give it a thumbs down, because I really could do without negative publicity. Feel free to stay tuned to the channel for any more practice casts. I'm also going to be trying to do some more Heroes of the Storm content and footage. And if anyone actually is even listening to this right now, send me a PM or a message or a comment on this video, and I'll send you a skin code for Riot Sona, I believe, or Arcade Sona, I believe it is. Where is that? Yeah, Arcade Sona. Because honestly, I just want to see how many viewers I have right now. How many people who actually make it to the end of these practice casts. But again, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll be back with another game relatively soon. Thanks.